Hey everybody, Bill FAETH here from Build Short-Term Rental Wealth, and today is the day. Today is the day that we're going to be talking about the new search filters inside of Airbnb. And I couldn't be more excited to where I'm not the only one that's going to be, going over this with you guys, but I've got my good friend and industry expert here to really carry the brunt of the education today. Mr. Kelvin Ma, who's the founder of RankBreeze. If you guys are not using RankBreeze, I'm going to tell you, this is a prime example of what we're going over today, to where when you start going in and making updates to your listings, if we can't track and really benchmark where we're at today, make an update, and then track again to where we can adjust those benchmarks, then we're not going to be able to figure out what's working. And that's the thing that I love about Kelvin. Kelvin, if you weren't at my boot camp a couple of months ago, Kelvin was here when we did the marketing boot camp. And the thing I love about Kelvin is, one, he's extremely knowledgeable. He has access to all the information that even I don't have access to. Two, he's very cerebral and intentional in what he's going to share today. No fluff or bullshit going to come out of Kelvin. And number three, he's just a great freaking guy. These Canadians, it's just they're fun to be around. So without further ado, let me bring up the star of the show today, Mr. Kelvin Ma, founder of RankBreeze. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. How about you?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to get into this because not only, I'm sure you've been bombarded with questions as I have over the last few days since this came out. But I kind of have seen to where I'm falling in multiple categories, and I've got questions as well. And the one thing that I want to quantify is, you and I were talking about, even when we messaged on Facebook a couple of days ago, and then right here before we started the broadcast, I need everybody to understand that this is so new. There's really no definitive answers right now. So what Kelvin's going to share, what I'm going to share, is basically our experience and knowledge that's probably going to be very similar to what we've talked about in listing optimization in the past, but it's going to be tied to the individual filters, I believe. So I don't know what Kelvin's going to share with us. We haven't gone through this, so I'm just as excited as you guys are. So just a couple of things. Most importantly, in the comments. So we're on YouTube. We're on the Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook page. We're in like 5 groups. Say hello and let Kelvin and I know where you're from. So Kelvin's from Canada. I'm a born-again redneck in Nashville, Tennessee, by way of California. But, when California really started getting screwed up is when I left Kelvin like 18 and a half years ago. So just say hello in the comments, so that way we can know where you are. I see that Don Galito's here. I see hello from, we got Michigan, John McNulty, Idaho. My main squeeze, Lori from downtown Nashville. She literally lives right next to the venue that we're going to be having the SDR Wealth Conference at. Tom Ackley from Milwaukee. Hey, Tom. Virginia. We got Washington State. We got some more people from Michigan, St. Joe, Missouri, Knoxville, Daytona Beach. Kelvin, we should be doing this like live on the beach from Daytona. That'd be a lot.
That'd be nice. I can't wait to do that after we figure out what we're going to be doing.
Exactly. We got Seattle in the house, Austin. We have an Aussie. I love it. New Brunswick, Texas.
It'd be super cool to also know, the types of areas people are into. They don't have to say like what, they don't have to say their market necessarily, but like what, are you in an urban market? Are you in like a traditional vacation rental market? Are you, yeah.
That's a great point. So if you believe you fall into one of the new filters, you might have an A-frame, you might be in a mountain market. If you're in the OMG, I want to know, if you found your listing in the OMG filter, I want to see your listings. I want to know really what qualifies to go into the OMG. But let us know where you're at. So I see beach and mountain markets. Are you lakefront? Are you countryside? Do you fall into these different filters? So I thank you all for doing this. I'm going to be monitoring the comments. If you haven't figured this out, what Kelvin and I have been doing for the first 4 minutes is just buying time. One, to engage with you guys, but also to where we can give the 106 people that are here, 107 now, time to be able to get into the broadcast, because we don't want anybody to miss the meat of it. So we're 4 minutes, 48 seconds, Kelvin. That 5-minute mark, it's time to go. So I'm going to turn this over to Kelvin. And I'm just going to start with the very first question. But if you guys will ask your questions in the comments, I'm going to be monitoring comments and I'll refer those over to Kelvin. Kelvin, I'm going to start with the first question for you. What's the most important thing I should know right now about the different categories or filters? And what should I be doing? What should I really pay attention to today during this podcast?
What are the most important things about the new categories that you should know right now? Is that
what do I need to know? What should I really be paying attention to? What's like the one message you want to get across to everybody today?
Oh, that's kind of hard. Actually, that's kind of hard because there's a lot of things. Actually, I don't know if I could necessarily choose one specific thing. When it comes to,
it's not one thing that's going to completely change your ranking or get you in. As we were kind of talking about in the minutes leading up to starting, it's going to be a multitude of things, of small things that we need to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of just one of those things where you got to do all the things. Really, Airbnb is going through this pretty bold change. I think this is a very bold move for a company of their size to change around things. Probably one of the questions I've been receiving is has the Airbnb algorithm completely changed? And I actually don't believe that it's changed completely, because really these things they're kind of just filters. They're just extra filters that have been added onto there, and they're categories, right? Airbnb's trying to pluck different details about specific listings and trying to organize these properties into particular categories. So really, it's a filtering system. Things like click-through rates, that's still very important. Things like time on page, all these different Airbnb ranking factors that are almost fundamental to what they've built to build this. I don't know how, it's like a $52 billion company now I think. And so that's a risky move for them to remove that. Plus, all that stuff is it's pretty similar across all search engines. But now I think what's happened though is that because of these new updates that have happened, what's being fed into that algorithm is going to change too. So over time, I think I have some thoughts around like where things will change. But I think probably one of the most important things is the fact that that when you're on search results, no matter if you're in categories or if you're in the all home section, there's no more titles. There's no more titles in the listing description, on the search results page anymore. So that's one thing you have to realize too. When you go on as a host, no longer can you stand out, when you go on as a guest, no longer can you stand out with your title in this listing description. So it's not going to drive you more clicks. That's one thing. It's not going to drive you more clicks. The main thing that's going to drive more clicks right now is photos. We could probably have an entire conversation probably about photos because of the massive difference that this update has made with that.
Absolutely. And that was actually even something that you pointed out when you were here at my boot camp, the difference between a really standout photo and an average or a bad photo, right? So I think you say that the title's not showing up, right? But if I click through for the clickbait, if you will, for it to go from the listing pages, but when I click to my actual listing, then the title's still going to be at the top, right? So I shouldn't forget about the title altogether, but maybe use it as a more descriptive component as opposed to trying to rank. What are your thoughts on that? Do we still need to have lakefront or hot tub or whatever in the title, or can we go off and be a little bit more creative?
I think you could get creative, but I also think that, people on the internet are always in a rush. They're always in a rush, especially for travel planning in a sense, right? I don't enjoy travel planning that much really. So the more information that I can get immediately when I go to a listing, you gotta tell that person, you gotta tell that guest exactly what they can expect from your property. So as far as if it comes down to whether that's important for ranking, it is still actually important for ranking because Airbnb is looking at your what they've said is they're using artificial intelligence, or a subset of that's called machine learning. And what they're doing is they're analyzing your title, they're analyzing your description, they're analyzing your photo captions, they're analyzing your reviews as well. And I'm getting a bit of a sense too that they're also analyzing your host profile as well. So these are kind of things that you can think about trying to optimize for these particular categories. As far as the title, whether it matters, it still matters. Do you add a more descriptive title? I think there's some benefit to that, but also I think it's really, sometimes you can also still be simple and still be descriptive, right? It's like, lake house, game room, hot tub, et cetera, et cetera. Those are like the biggest selling features. Just, adding more description might be almost too much fluff in a way too.
Absolutely. You mentioned our host profile. I don't think I've ever heard that mentioned before. Are you talking about like my personal profile to go in and really build out my description that I own lake properties, I own mountain properties, like label where they're at? What do you kind of go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, if you have a niche per se, or niche, there's some opportunity there to help Airbnb understand more about your business per se. And if you can explain, hey, we specialize in A-frame properties, for example, in XYZ, then you're kind of giving Airbnb a little bit more information about you. And about the properties that you also have, right? So Airbnb understands the property level, but they also understand you as a host as well, right? So that's why sometimes, if sometimes something can happen to your listing that can impact your portfolio of properties too. Like that's the thing there, because they are taking into consideration the overall value, and that's why Superhost is portfolio wide, right? It's not necessarily specifically for a single property there. But really, I think probably one of the things that might be a good generalization, I think most of these calls that we're doing is around just like putting on your SEO hat, putting yourself in the shoes of like what is Airbnb trying to do and what do they need, right? So they're always going to need more information. The more information that you provide Airbnb, and where it's very specific and I would almost say simple, trying to complicate certain things when you're trying to communicate to this algorithm and this thing called Airbnb and the data they're trying to store and how they're trying to organize it. You don't want to make it complicated. So I'll give you an example. So in your photos, you might have a picture of your living room. In the background, there's a kitchen, and in the upstairs, and maybe there's some stairs that you can kind of see, and maybe there's like a little bit of an edge of like a door that has your master bedroom in it. Yeah. So that whole thing there, if you write that, if this is your caption, that this is the living room with the kitchen in the background, and if you go up the stairwell and you turn right, you're going to go see the master bedroom with an ensuite. Like that's almost like too much information exactly for Airbnb to understand, and it's complicating that. So what you can do is you drill down to exactly what that particular listing is about, and that'll help Airbnb organize your property better. Probably another interesting thing is that,
Kelvin, if that's like a lake property or a ski in, ski out, would that be like, this is the cozy, comfy, living room with the big rock fireplace type of a deal, and leave the kitchen off, leave the stairwell off, leave the ensuite off? Is that what you're saying? And kind of just focus on the main part of that image and not try to own everything?
Yeah, I would even put it even make it even simpler. Put it at the very beginning, like lakefront property, : or dash, and then you can add whatever descriptor you'd like after that. So that it's blatantly clear. Yeah.
Are you saying I should go into all like 50 images and start every one of them with lakefront property : and do that on every image, or just like ones with that are showing the lake or the outside?
That's a good question.
Because my SEO hat's on while you're thinking, I'm thinking about
Yeah.
keyword stuffing, back in the day. As
Yeah, totally.
the ones that show the water, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, well, see, the reason why I'm kind of pondering this a little bit right now is because right now Airbnb is if you're in a particular category, they'll pull a different photo for you sometimes, not all the time, but they'll shift. Like, for example, if you're in, I don't know, if let's say you're in an urban area, like a city and things like that, and you have a pool, but maybe the pool isn't the first picture that you have, because maybe the interior of the property is a little bit more important, but you still have a pool. Airbnb's moving that pool image, and that's basically your cover image when it comes down to when you're searching in the categories there. So that's kind of what's happening there. And if you click through, it'll actually adapt the listing page so that your pool photo is the same thing. That's one thing that's pretty interesting and pretty cool in some ways. But if you have all photos of your lake, if you have photos that are all of the lake, it's like, which one are they choosing, right? So it's not always necessary that they're choosing the cover photo that you have set, which I think is kind of strange. They're going to go in and make some sort of judgment, and they're going to go in. And I think what they're doing right now is they're just testing. They're testing different photos for you to see which one's working. So right now, I think there's a lot of fluctuations that are happening, and it's because of these things that Airbnb is really trying to test, and they need more data to make better decisions. So and all that stuff takes time. But again, back to your question of whether or not to say that it's all a lakefront property, I would probably say yes, that they're being blatantly obvious with that stuff is going to work in your favor. But as far as which photo they're going to choose over any of those ones that you've designated as lakefront property, I think is something that we still don't know. And they're analyzing your image, so that's the one thing that we do know.
Awesome stuff. Keep it coming.
Well, maybe I'd love to backtrack a little bit, maybe, and just talk about the updates that are there, and kind of go from there. Should I share my screen? I don't know
awesome.
if that's is that I will. Okay. See how this works.
And I see a gazillion questions from everybody. Keep them coming. As soon as we get through with Kelvin's kind of presentation here, then I'll start asking all the questions on your behalf.
Yeah. So, can you see my screen?
Now we can.
Is it okay? Perfect. Okay. So right now we've got the all homes category. All homes is where everybody's placed, right? And then we have all these different categories here on these pages, and these also change. These categories change based on your location. Some have more of them, some have less of them. In some ways, I suppose it makes more sense to I would be, you'd be happier to be in at least these first few categories rather than the ones that you have to click all the way over here by. So yeah, that's probably the those are the big changes that Airbnb's talked about. They've talked about these adding these new categories on their end. So right now they've removed the custom titles. There's no more custom title anymore. That's available on the search results page, but they've replaced it with something like apartment in Queenstown or home in Queenstown. It's a little bit more generic now. And one thing you'll notice too is that, well, let's go somewhere else.
And that kind of sucks, Kelvin, because really that comes down to image, the quality of your image, and your price, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. Even yeah, that's one thing too. Is they've got these star ratings here, the star ratings, but I mean, I don't know about you, Bill, but star ratings for me, if you're over a 4.5, maybe even just a 4, I'm okay. I'm okay with that personally. So I don't actually think the star ratings are nearly as important as
That's a
as the
whole
price and
discussion for a
also
whole
as the
nother
photos.
hour someday. But what I will share with people, being in the reputation management business prior, that a lot of people are turned off by full 5-star ratings because they think that they're false, right? So being like you see here, you've got 5.0 versus 4.97. The vast majority would migrate to the 4.97 because they think that's real. Just FYI.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. They've also removed the number of reviews for each property as well, right? So you can't actually tell. I mean, besides this new one, which doesn't have at least 3 reviews, you can't tell, in a sense, you can't really tell which property is the most reputable. I would say that's another thing that's a little bit difficult to investigate as a guest searching around, which I think can be a little bit more difficult when we're talking about maybe the more urban areas where let's say you're going and you're just traveling for just you and your significant other, and you're just trying to find a place, something a little bit simpler. I think it's actually making that decision much more difficult. And really, the only way to stand out at this time is the photo section. Another thing that they've added now is this thing called split stays. I can't find an example here, but generally, what will happen is that they'll have this. Let's say these were 2 properties that had, like, this property had, you could stay here from April 25th to May 2nd. And then with this property, it would show May 3rd to May 6th, because you have to have at least 3 available nights in order for you to qualify as a split stay to be recommended for someone. And this it doesn't look like an image, like it doesn't show your Airbnb listing. It's kind of this other image that I don't have
So,
right now.
Kelvin,
But
my
that's
theory
that's
I'm
another
interested
thing.
in your opinion on why they've done that. My theory on that is that's their way to be able to potentially gap. So we all have X amount of days in our minimums. Let's say you have a 4-day minimum, then you need in your PMS, you need to set up that 2-day gap, that 3-day gap. Do you believe that's why they're doing this when somebody's looking for a 5-day, 6-day, 7-day, to where they can come in and they can gap and string 2 properties together?
Mm, yeah, I think that's certainly part of it, is trying to part of this update, I think, is actually just spreading around more bookings to people. If you're removing reviews, you're kind of trying to give everybody a little bit more of a fairer chance, which I'm not sure if I 100% agree with it with that update there. But the as far as, yeah, if connecting split stays, probably, yeah, it's about promotion and things like that. If we were to go maybe a little bit higher level than that, uh, I think a lot of these changes that have been made to Airbnb for this update, at least, have to do with their mission. I think, wasn't that long ago, I think that their CEO Brian Chesky was talking about living on Airbnb. So, and that's what he's been doing for the last. He's been doing that for the last year, I think. Is he'll book properties pretty last minute, and he'll just stay in them. So he is actually living on Airbnb, and a lot of these updates, I think, have to do with um, his own experiences while searching for different properties. So that's kind of where I think that maybe that high level understanding of why would they make these changes is, okay, yeah, they want to increase rates, they want more unique properties, they want they want more bookings. Of course, that's like a metric that's important for even investors when they're looking at this kind of stuff. And yeah, they're trying to spread around more bookings, as well as, yeah, so even connecting those 2 things together, the split stays together, that's part of that. And really living, I guess, their mission of living on Airbnb, that seems to be a strong reason for some of these design changes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I went to Gatlinburg because it's a little bit more of a an area that I think we'd be more familiar with than Queenstown. If we choose something like, I don't know, what we should choose. I'm not actually sure if Gatlinburg is probably the best place. Let's actually choose somewhere else. Let's choose San Antonio. Let's choose San Antonio, Texas, here. And the reason why is because Gatlinburg has quite a few properties, so I just want to display something else. So if we're in all homes, you're in. This is San Antonio here. If you click, let's click golfing. If you click golfing, it zooms you out. So now you're in. Is that Waco? Yeah, that's Waco over there. They're pretty much just showing you a whole bunch of different properties, and in some ways as well, if you're really close to the edge of the border of of a country, they're going to recommend you different different places as a guest that are in different countries too. So it's not, it's maybe not the most convenient thing, but it certainly is displaying all of the different properties that Airbnb has. I think that's part of one of the things too, is that they're trying to convey to the guests, oh, here's all these great unique properties that we have here on Airbnb. Well, maybe that's not necessarily true, right? Because it's also, your property could be on VRBO too. But here's an example of the split stay scenario here too. If you hover over this, it does that little jump on the map there, so you can kind of see how that works. Yeah, and if you're in a golf course area, they will also tell you what what area of the golf course you're in. And I think if we go somewhere like, maybe not lakefront, amazing pools. I was going to say, if we go, I have seen it before. If we let's go back to San Antonio, Texas. Go here. If we go to amazing pools, yeah, so it still gives us a lot of stuff there, and yeah, it kind of just mentions what, yeah, I guess it reverts back to the to home in whatever city, and then now they're displaying the beds there too, so that's a little bit of a change there. And I think that's the majority of the updates in general. We also, we covered too that if it's amazing pool and things like that, they'll kind of choose images. They'll choose an image that and they'll test it as your cover image right now. And I think that's kind of what they're doing, is they're rotating through a bunch of different images to see which one is the best image, regardless of what you listed as your cover photo. Yeah, I think those are the updates. So I wanted to get that clear and out of the way for folks.
That's awesome.
What are you thinking, Bill?
That's awesome. Thank you. We got a million questions. Do you want to answer some questions?
Sure. Yeah.
How do I get into categories? We're a treehouse-esque cabin on a large river, and we aren't in any categories.
Yeah. So Airbnbs right now, they're looking at titles, they're looking at descriptions, they're looking at photo captions, they're looking at reviews as well, and looking generally at your photos, right? So they're also analyzing your photos. So I would do as much as you can to make it as blatantly clear that this is a treehouse property, and shifting everything to, like, moving it at the beginning of the paragraph, for example, like in the summary, for sure have it in your summary, for sure have it in your title there. Try to fill out all the captions that you have in your listing. Airbnb seems to really like that right now. They're really liking the captions being filled out. Reviews, you can't do much about reviews, but reviews right now seem to be very, very important, if not maybe the most important thing when it comes down to these category decisions. You can't change a review, but maybe you can start to think about how you can have folks mention that treehouse a little bit more in their review. And if they're not already, I don't know exactly how blatant your treehouse is either. Like, you know, if it's, is it actually a house inside of a tree? I don't know, or maybe some people don't know that it is a treehouse. For example, I've looked at homes in the tiny homes category, which to me are not tiny homes, but to someone, I guess they've kind of positioned
1,200 square foot A-frames in there in the tiny homes and that type of stuff.
Yeah, there's some tiny homes that have like, you know, pool
Right.
tables
I
in
mean,
them.
here's what you guys need to understand. This is like 3 days, 4 days old. Machine learning, artificial intelligence takes time and millions upon millions upon millions of data points to get really good at what it's doing. This is going to improve and continue to improve on a week by week basis. So I see a lot of you saying, hey, I have a cabin and maybe I need to, my cabin doesn't look like a cabin, or it's not showing up in cabins, or I'm lakefront and it's not on the lakefront. What I'm hearing Kelvin say is really we need to take the same optimization strategies that we should have used in the past, right? But try to optimize for the category that you want to be in. The question becomes, can we really try and be effective in trying to optimize for multiple categories? I don't think we know that yet. Would you agree?
No, I don't know that yet. I do know that properties do appear in multiple categories. For example, there was a property that I came across that was in it was a tiny home. Not much of a tiny home to me, but it was in the tiny home category, but it was also in the pool category as well. And I can't remember the last one, but it was in 3 different categories. So that's
so you could have an amazingly unique home and fall into a unique category. You could have an amazing pool be in the amazing category. It could be lakefront, be in the lakefront category. And if it's like one of the best properties in the world, it could be in the OMG category, potentially. But there's really nothing we can do to push into that. We've got to kind of sit back and wait for the AI and the machine learning to mature, right? To learn what's going to be happening. And I'm not going to turn this into a freaking sales pitch for RankBreeze, but this is exactly why I should have my affiliate link up there, Kelvin. This is exactly why you need to have something like RankBreeze, because it's when you can look at where you're ranked on occupancy for dates, and then you can go in and make one of these changes. If you're not tracking that data, so like Kelvin has this log. Once again, I mentioned this at the very beginning. Any SEO will tell you, when you make a change, you want to A/B test. Don't go change 5,000 things at one time. Make one change or one consistent change to all of your images. Add lakefront property, like what Kelvin said. Document it. Wait for the algorithm to update. Wait 2 or 3 days. Document it in your RankBreeze log. Then go back and look at how that impacts your rankings. You may go up. You may go down. You might see it in the lakefront filter. You might not have seen it previously. But make note of that. That's the only way that we're going to get better at optimizing our listings. We can't just go and change a bunch of shit and then not know which change impacted positively or negatively, or we're just going to end up going around in circles like we're on a hamster wheel.
Yes, you always got to know where you rank, especially right now, because there's no title necessarily. You still have a title, right? But right now you gotta. There's a lot more work to find your property, because you have to scroll literally through every image and analyze it. You know, it's going to be pretty hard on the brain there. But categories, these are important things. I think probably, yeah, I agree with you, Bill. Over time, it will sort itself out. It's just, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I think, they made this big change. They're just starting to they're just starting to email people too about these categories, right? We're only, at least in we're only in one little area, right? We're in North America. There's properties in all sorts of different places. So I think they're pretty much like rolling this out. And in some ways, we've had some thoughts of the possibility of perhaps them rolling it back too. I don't know if they will, but lots of companies have spent lots of money, like billions of dollars on big changes, and then rolled them back. So it is possible that happens. I kind of doubt it. It seems like this is kind of where they're going. They're staking their land. on this particular decision, and in a way, kind of forcing people to make these. It's probably changing the investor climate as well. What type of property you're going to consider buying in the future. But anyways,
anybody remember New Coke? Are you old enough to remember the New Coke?
No.
You're too young, right? Literally like $1 billion for Coke to roll out New Coke, back probably in the mid 80s, and it lasted for like less than a year, and then they rolled it off. Lori asked a great question. Lori,
sorry, can I?
Yeah,
I just want to do one thing, because while we're talking about these categories, there's different things too that maybe you can try to think about how you might want to jump the queue, right? So you might can snooze your property and things like that, and bring it back online. So you make your changes, you snooze your property, bring it back online. Another thought would be, if the image isn't clear enough, if it's not clear enough to Airbnb, because it's they're trying to analyze these photos. If the image is not clear enough that this is a tree house, then you probably need to think about either a redesign or taking another a photo of the property, and deleting the old one, re-uploading the new one. And these are just different things that you can potentially do to kind of jump that queue.
So I think a lot of people, and Lori asked, should I be more specific now? Instead of calling my properties gateway, should I now say condo or home? I think a lot of people try to say, my weekend getaway, my love shack, my whatever, my romantic, place. They don't use the specific terms of cabin, lodge, treehouse, lakefront, beachfront, ski in, ski out. These are all terms that have always been important, in my opinion, to how we're going to rank, and most importantly, in the communication to the potential guest, and that conversion. So if you have a ski in, ski out, it may not help you in the ranking. It should help you get into the ski in, ski out category, which you all want, because there's a huge difference between being ski in, ski out and having to drive a mile. Just like where I see a million people hang their hats on, 15 minutes to Dollywood. Well, I don't want to drive 15 minutes to Dollywood. I want to be 5 minutes from Dollywood. If I'm one of those people, then I'm kicking your property out. It's too far away. Well, I'm a guy that's closing on a property close to a ski resort, but I'm going to be a mile away, right? I can't use ski in, ski out. I've got a client that's closing tomorrow that is going to be ski in, ski out. His property line literally touches the slope, the state land where the slope is. So my job is going to be to make sure he gets into that ski in, ski out category. Because if he doesn't, then it's going to be just like where I'm at, right? So I've got to, as Kelvin says, I think number one, the takeaway that I didn't really think about is the clarity, the specificity, the intentionality of the image. And even if you go and you look at my post this morning in the group of my brand new lodge in North Carolina, I don't know that the photos that I have of the exterior are going to be clear enough of what it is. Because like you said, and you mentioned the living room, the kitchen, the stairwell, all that type of stuff. Like my main photo, Kelvin, really focuses on the fire pit and a stone walkway up to the house, to where the house is probably only 33% of the photo. So thank God I've got my guy coming back next week. I'm going to intentionally focus on some crystal clear shots of just the house to make sure that I can fall in. The other thing I don't have is great views. I have tremendous long-range views. The photographer didn't take them. One of the reasons I'm bringing them back. So I got to make sure I have great long-range views, right? So that's what I'm hearing Kelvin say as a host, just like you guys, that we need to be very, very specific, and we need to be specific from title to description to image captions to our own profile, to where everything is coordinated together on where we're trying to rank in these filters. Is that a pretty decent summary, Kelvin?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're just riffing. we're certainly just riffing right now on this topic. The one thing I think that's pretty interesting is, let's say your property in traditional vacation rental market, you've got a cabin, but then they also have these other categories like countryside and off the grid, you know, and they seem pretty similar to me, right? But that's actually, but in this case right now, you know, not all cabins are showing up in the countryside category. Even properties that are right next to each other, they're not actually showing up there either. So there's that particular problem, I guess, and in a sense, I think it'll kind of even out. And from what I understand, is that the most well-performing properties seem to be populating in those areas. But besides being performing well, I think there's probably that other extra step too. Is like if somebody's looking at a cabin, that's one thing. But if they're looking for countryside or off the grid, you know, there's some difference there. There's some difference there that the guest is trying to do. Only a person clicking on those they're looking for specific things, right? They're probably looking for a very, very quiet place where they may not see anybody around for the entire stay that they're there. So, you know, you just have to kind of think about it like that. And for example, like quiet and like these are the type of maybe keywords that you might want to add into your listing where you're trying to highlight that, right? Because if you know it's going to be quiet and there's like nobody around you for a couple kilometers, in some cases that, you know, that is true for some folks there, you just need to make it a little more blatantly clear. And you have to just understand that this is, if a person is searching on Airbnb, the only reason why they're going to that countryside or off the side category is because they're looking for something very specific. And if you can try to narrow in on that, then you'll.
And I think to echo what Kelvin is stating here, and I just want to go back, take a step back for a second. Kelvin and I don't know. Nobody knows except for Airbnb right now. And they probably don't even know, to be honest with you. They've created these filters, and what's going to happen is the AI, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning is going to learn from how us as guests are using these filters. So as an example, countryside to somebody might mean 5 miles from my house out in the trees in the country outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Whereas the intent was they're talking about an English countryside or the French Bordeaux region of a countryside, right? Or being, so the way that the users use it and the conversion rates on different types of listings, they'll end up, that's what I think becomes really important. That's what machine learning is it's going to learn from how the platform is being used. So all of this can change dramatically, right, over time. And I think we'll see Kelvin and I'm going to make a promise right here. 30 days from now, the middle of June, Kelvin and I are going to come back and we're going to do this and we'll give an update. You commit to that, Kelvin?
Sure. Yeah.
And we will, I promise you, we will see a pretty significant difference in the language, not the language, but the discussion will probably be a little bit different in 30 days. We'll have way more information. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we'd have more information. I mean, it's a little over a week's time right now. And again, like, you know, has the Airbnb algorithm changed like 100%? Not really. I mean, yes, in some cases they're changing photos and stuff like that, but the core stuff is, you know, that's still fairly reliable. But now it's the inputs. The inputs have completely changed, right? So if your title was the one thing that was like, for example, game room, right? If your they don't have a game room filter on Airbnb. They should, but they don't have that right now. So if you're not standing out with that as a unique selling proposition for your property, it's got to be blatantly clear on that very, very first image. And you have to connect with the people that you're trying to connect to. So if you're not crystal clear on that, you should get crystal clear.
Somebody asked earlier about using Collage. So I've been a proponent of going into Canva and, you know, taking our screen and just cutting it into Ford, where I can show hot tub, I can show fire pit, I've got game room, you know, I've got whatever, you know, here movie theater, to where I can show all of those in an easy, you know, Canva.com free photo editing tool and put those all in, and then put that in my first 5 images, you know, with a description. What have you seen people do that? Have you seen any negative impact to trying to combine that into one image? because I see that as a great informational strategy for the guest. But I think a lot of people are concerned about doing that from, a ranking standpoint.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have, I have heard, I haven't verified it, but and I don't know exactly, but there was a mention of adding text in photos, and that's not that's against terms of service. I haven't read that personally, but Bill, do you know that? Is that
I understand that's against the terms of service. I do not add text to any photos ever
okay?
because of that. So I'm kind of that white hat guy, and you and I know in SEO you want to be in that gray area, riding that line. I kind of stay more towards the the Lone Ranger on the white hat side. So I've never put text on an image, but I have done some of those collages, if you will. And I see a lot of you that are asking, is this going to be recorded? Absolutely. So just one thing for everybody to know is an educational data point. Anytime there's a live broadcast, at least by me, it's always recorded and it's in the same link. So if you're here now, just save this link to like your video or save it, and you'll always be able to go back and do it. And I will put this up in the featured in the pinned post in every group that we're in right now. A couple of things. One, I want to answer a question because I've seen this 3 times. People have asked about video. Airbnb does not allow video. Vrbo does. And I don't know, and I'm going to let Kelvin answer this in a second, if that impacts positively on the ranking. I'm going to assume that it does because of one big thing. If you have a really great video, and I have probably one of the best ones I've ever seen that my guy Chris, you met Chris that works for me, and my my beach house that I built, literally flew a drone over the water, over the beach, under my house, to my pool, back up and in the back door. And then we switched to an Osmo and did the video walkthrough for like 2 minutes. And I know the video is so cool that he put on it. If somebody clicks on it, they're probably going to watch a lot of it, if not the whole thing. So what that does is it gives them a better perspective through the video of the property, and it creates more time on site or more time on listing, which is a big data point from a ranking factor. If somebody clicks your listing and then clicks off in like 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, it's what Kelvin and I would refer to as a bounce. So they did click, so you do get a conversion from, the click to your listing, but the longer they stay there, the better off you're going to be. 1, from a potentially increasing conversion opportunity. 2, from a branding impression. And 3, that's the indication Airbnb and Vrbo or whoever that, wow, these people really like this information. So I am 100% pro video. I think everybody should have it on Vrbo. Video communicates the reality of our properties much better than we can ever do inside of our images. So if you're doing off-platform marketing, it's one of the reasons in our Host Academy program where we actually build the funnels and the campaigns for you. Every single one of the funnels, urban, lake, property, ski in, ski out, beach, whatever, it all has video assets that we've created as opposed to just using images. So I'm a big video guy. What do you say about the ranking component of video, Kelvin?
I actually don't know because most of the stuff is with Airbnb. I'm not really, don't have the expertise with VRBO, but hey, you can add an image, or so you can add a link to your YouTube video on your listing. Kind of, it's not, you're not supposed to put links, but you can pretty much communicate with the person how to access that pretty easily. Even if you just, for example, youtube.com, and then you put parentheses around the brackets around the dot, it still shows up there. And most intuitive people would probably be able to gather that this is a YouTube video, especially if you said walkthrough YouTube video, and then you had that there. And yes, they're gonna go to a different page, right? And so when it comes down to time on page, they're going to arrive on your listing, see the video. Maybe they'll, it'd be. I understand why Airbnb doesn't want to drive people to different websites, but in a sense, if you've got that video there and you can intuitively communicate that to somebody, then they can go and watch that video. And that overall, that time when they're staying on your property there, on your listing, that's going to improve your time on page there. So in a sense, yes, that's going to improve your ranking, but it's kind of, it's a little bit of a roundabout way of getting that video in front of people. I think they're probably not adding videos right now because of resources. It's just a lot of resources that have to go with that. It slows down loading speed and whatnot. I think one thing that could be a really cool feature for Airbnb, I know it's not really about a cool feature thing that they could do, but it'd be nice if you just hovered over photos and they just rotated themselves instead of you having to click through. That would be it. That would save so much time. My arm kind of hurts a little bit from just clicking all these different photos and seeing how folks are experiencing Airbnb now. That's my one feature request for them.
Cool. I'm going to put this up from Ben Sawyer. He asked this a little while ago. If I can find my mouse here. There we go. Ben asked, what to do if my property is a vanilla townhome in a suburb of a metro city? I've done well, but I don't have a submarine in my yard, a ski slope, a beach within walking distance. I don't think I fit any category. What now?
Yeah. I'll try to answer this in two ways. So Ben, if you have multiple properties in an area, I think there's some benefits of people who have multiple properties that they can kind of play around with. So for example, just in general, the branding aspect of your photos in there, like you can kind of position, you can design your photos in a way, like graphically, where there's a little bit of branding that you're adding on top of there. And when a person is searching on Airbnb, they see one property and it kind of stands out with that branding. Maybe if it's not quite for them, they might ignore that. But if they go to a different page and they see that branding again, they're probably going to get a little curious about that. So they'll either go through, click through on that property and see, okay, that's pretty interesting. We've got two photos here that look that are different properties, but they have the same branding. So what's going on here? And the most important thing right now, at least, is to get that click, right? Because once you get the click, that means that your property gets into the personalization aspect that Airbnb is trying to that the Airbnb is doing, right? So it's very similar to, if you check Airbnb and normally for yourself, oftentimes, you're going to see your own property pop up there because of the fact that you go to your property the most. So it's always going to be there. That actually happens for everybody else, for all the properties that they're clicking on too. So Airbnb's utilizing that personalization aspect of it. And the more you can get that click, the more you're going to fall into the personalization of the guest and get an opportunity to reappear in their search results again. As for whether, like, how to stand out, yeah, it's kind of the same answer, I suppose, is try the collages, try what you can to stand out using the photos, and you got to try to drive that click. That's the most important thing right now is to drive the click in almost in however creative way that you can. I've seen people who don't even use photos of their listing, and it's just it's almost like a flyer. They have a flyer there that says Memorial Day special. That was interesting enough for me, actually, to go and at least see the rest of the photos in there, and I did eventually click through to it. So there's, you can kind of think about aspects like that. Yes, Bill's kind of saying that he's trying to avoid the text and things like that. But as we all know, we've seen people with texts and things like that in their photos.
Be careful. You've seen all the
it's
other
personal decision.
That, people that do break the terms of service and they don't understand the rules, and then they get booted off the platform, and it's tough to get back on.
Just understand, for sure.
So, I mean, Christina Cash asked, if I can ask them, say, can I type in, ask us for a video, then get their email to send the link. Asking somebody on Airbnb, like on the platform, for their email address is like the first thing that's going to get you banned, because they assume that you're going to try to take them to a direct booking off of their platform. I will give you a little bit of a trick, and I saw what Tom posted. Don't post your company name and stuff like that. But one thing that becomes really important is if you do show your branding, To where you could have, like, I have signs in all my properties, right? Just with the name of the house. So that's in every one of my listings, right? Whether it's my lodge, my beach house, whatever, they see the name of the house in the sign. I'm not typing it into the description copy. You have people that are astute enough that will go and do a Google search for Dragonfly in Gulf Shores as an example, and they will find my direct booking site, right? So there's some subtle ways that you can, do your branding to brand impact, and to where smart guests are going to figure out how to book with you directly, whether it's through your images or whether it's through your captions or through your copy. But you just got to be careful. That's also another reason why Vacasa has every property managed by Vacasa. Now, I do mine as Bill. I want all of mine to be personal because I want that small personal feeling. I don't want to be known as a property management company. Even with my co-hosting, I do the exact same thing. But some things that I think become super important are exactly what Kelvin is saying. And it's really interesting. Kelvin and I both have history of doing SEO even before, Airbnb and that type of stuff. And what we see, I shouldn't say what I've seen in the past, I know he's going to agree because we've talked about this. People that try too hard to SEO, that keyword stuff, that use too many keywords, that are trying to get a little bit of edge on their competitors or on the system, are the ones that typically don't really become that successful, or they go too far and then they get in trouble. If you really optimize for your guest and make it super easy for your guest to make a decision, to click through to your listing, and they see what they're looking for, that's your best bet from an optimization standpoint. Would you agree with that, Kelvin?
I sort of agree. I do agree in some ways. I do think that Airbnb. I do agree. But I think that Google is a little, Google's a different search engine. Airbnb is probably a much simpler search engine, realistically. So I think that there are opportunities to utilize those keywords in more blatant ways that can come across a little bit easier for them. I don't think Airbnb is really going to ding you if you're like super clear about being a A-frame house or something like that. In regards
to what you're talking about right now, I'm kind of being dinged because I don't know the answer to this. And somebody asked this in the first 5 minutes, and we're almost an hour in. And this has nothing to do with filters, but what about emoticons and emojis? Because we know it's against the terms of service, but we still see a ton of people do it, and a ton of people that have really good rankings. What are your thoughts on emojis and emoticons? Like, can I put a mountain emoji in? Should I put a beach emoji in? What's the deal with that?
It is against the terms of service. That is for sure. Adding emojis into your title, at least. I don't know if they've been so specific about your listing description. I think it's kind of fun to add into your listing description, even as like bullet points, and replacing those simple bullet points with something a little cooler and fun for people to go through. I'm a little mixed with emojis. I think that I don't really think you need them. They don't really add a whole lot of value, and Airbnb doesn't really, they're not, when they're analyzing your text for your property, they're not looking at the emojis and thinking, oh, this is a beach emoji, and we're going to classify this as a beach home. Right. So, it's much simpler than that. You just using plain text, I think, is an easier way to translate things over to a guest, right? And another thing too is, I guess, yeah, when it's everything's about it's everything. Even though we're talking about all this keyword stuff, it ultimately comes down to the guest and their experience while searching as well, right? So just try to break down every little movement, in a sense, that a person makes when they're traveling, when they're going and trying to find your property. And I think if you kind of break down those incremental conversions along the way, that'll help you kind of fine tune your listing a little bit. So for example, the photo is super important right now, right? So getting that photo, driving that click, that's the one thing I think that's probably the most important right now for people to reconsider. getting that. And then so when a person arrives there though, so what else? Like the getting a person to click through on your property is maybe 25% of the mountain that you're trying to climb a little bit, right? It's like they've gone there, but then what the decision to actually make that booking is something that you also still need to focus on, which is why the title still is an important thing to consider into your your listing. I kind of think of it like a billboard. Imagine if you're like driving down a highway and you could run a billboard for your properties on the highway there. What would you put there? What would you write there that would make sense for that person to consider that listing and give it that extra shot there? And you also have to, in some ways too, you have to be simple about how you convey those things to people, because the more complicated you speak when your text is in there, it's not helping you. So the simpler the better.
Do you think it hurts?
Does what hurt?
Emojis in the title. Do you think that hurts the ranking?
I don't think so. I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts, but it could hurt you in the future for terms of service stuff.
Gotcha. So I know we're at 1 hour. I want to be very cognizant of your time because I'm very grateful that you're here. I kind of just want to give you a second for a Rank Breeze plug, if you will, because Chad Casey asked a great question, and I'll let you segue us out on this. How long will it take Rank Breeze to catch up if this changes as AI learns and changes? How long behind will Rank Breeze be? So I don't think, Chad, that Rank Breeze will be behind. I think if there's anybody in our industry that's on top of shit with these changes, it's Kelvin and it's Rank Breeze. But I think really to reword your question is, what it should probably have said is how much time do you think we need to give Airbnb to go through its own learning process to where we see some incremental changes through the AI and the machine learning? And I assume you're going to be right behind them every step of the way as you're getting updates and you're directly connected through their API.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll kind of give you maybe a lay of the land of what's happening in RankBreeze, because that's probably a good thing to highlight. So right now, everything in RankBreeze right now is, at least the keyword recommendations that we have, and like we're generally we're collecting top ranking properties and kind of reverse engineering them. All that stuff is mostly in the all homes category right now. So all homes is the stuff that is existing in RankBreeze right now. And right now we're just going through some, we're calling them like feasibility studies. We're just trying to answer simple questions for ourselves in a sense, like, okay, yeah, again, like what, can a property be in multiple categories? That was a question that we had earlier in the week. And we're just slowly asking questions, looking at the data right now, and really absorbing it. I don't necessarily have a timeline per se about that. And in some cases too, we're trying to figure out how will we add these things into the design, because you kind of design for a certain thing, and when you stuff something in, it's kind of it's a little bit of a hard problem to solve. So right now that's one aspect of the personal issues that we're dealing with over there. I don't know how long we'll be doing it. We're certainly just trying to take it day by day, and certainly analyzing the categories is going to be a pretty big thing for us, I think, going forward. And we're just going to solve and try to figure out what the next best steps are from a data perspective, but also how to, certain questions like how to get into a category, maybe what profitable or which categories are the most profitable. These are certain questions that we have right now. Maybe another thing that's so RankBreeze is a software company, and we're also services. In the listing optimization service, we do like we'll kind of use our own tool, and we'll recreate a listing description for you. But then there's some photo stuff as well that comes with that. So we do some enhancements for the photos. Sometimes we'll like adjust the sky and things like that, and also you'll get some collages too. So that's one aspect of how we're trying to stay ahead of things. And sometimes, we already did that stuff in the services part of RankBreeze. So that's one avenue of where it comes of what we're trying to help. But in general, right now, we're in the all homes category, and we're we're exploring the feasibility of all these other categories too, and just answering fundamental questions. Right now, there's a lot of fundamental questions that we need to answer that we're answering, and before we make any hard decisions with that. So I don't have a timeline, but it's like the most important thing right now.
Awesome. Kelvin, thank you very much. Everybody, give Kelvin a thumbs up. Hit your like button. Hit your thumbs up button for Kelvin. Kelvin, I really appreciate you being here. I know this kind of came about very, very quickly. It's Friday. It's Friday morning. Now it's Friday afternoon in many places. I know it's not easy to carve out an hour and 10 minutes of time in all of our lives. So I just want you to know I'm grateful for you to be here. I really appreciate you, and I thank all of our viewers today and the people that watch this on the recording. Just a reminder for everybody that's here, yes, this is recorded. It'll be on this exact link in all of the groups, wherever you're watching this on YouTube or the Build Short-Term Rental Facebook group, the Mastermind group, the Host Academy group, wherever it is, it's going to stay in each one of these groups individually. I am going to pin this to the featured post in the Build Short-Term Rental Wealth group. If you have any questions, if you're watching on the recording, just tag me or Kelvin. We'll get to you as quickly as we can. And once again, just round of applause. Kelvin, thank you. As always, you are a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Bill. Great to connect again with everybody else. And yeah, we're always around to answer other questions and stuff like that too. So
awesome. Thank
thanks
you.
again.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Happy hosting.